Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many pattern printing problems using for loop, string concatenation, and also using string multiplication. In this video, we will solve this particular pattern printing using for loop, string concatenation, and string multiplication. If you don't know about string concatenation and string multiplication, you can watch my video about pattern printing 1 where I have explained clearly about what exactly string concatenation and string multiplication. Having said that, let us go ahead and see how we can solve this particular problem. So for that, what I will be doing is that I will take a variable named rows and I will mention with 5 because we have 5 rows here. For that reason, I am taking rows as 5. If you carefully observe this particular pattern, we have two different types of spaces. Here, before pattern is starting, we have spaces like this and like this we are having these spaces in front of these stars. So for that reason I will take a variable called outer spaces. In these outer spaces, I will keep track of these particular spaces which are before of this particular star. So initially, I will assign these outer spaces as rows minus 1 because of the reason in the first row I have 4 spaces when I have 5 actual position. In the one position is occupied by the star and the remaining positions are of spaces. For that reason, I am mentioning outer spaces as rows minus 1. So after that, I will take one more variable which is of inner spaces. In these inner spaces, what we will be keeping tracking of this is that we will keep track of these particular spaces which are having in between of these stars. So for that reason, we will keep track of these spaces. So initially, I will assign the value of 1. So here we will start this tracking of the spaces from this row to until the previous row of the last row. So for that reason, I will take the value as 1. So because we have one space here. Later, what we will be doing is that we will generate a range of values from 1 to how many number of values we are rows we are having. So for that, I will use a for loop for I in range. By using this range function, we can actually generate a range of values. So here, what we will be generating is that I will be generating a range of values from 1 to how many number of rows we are having. So for that reason, I have mentioned rows plus 1. By mentioning plus 1, we can actually generate range of values until rows. If you don't know about this range function, watch out my video about rows in for loop. So by that you can understand how we are getting this particular range of values from range. So in the for loop, what I will be doing is that I will mention a condition saying if I equal to 1 or I equal to rows. So by mentioning this, I am telling if my row, whatever the row that I am keeping track by using this range of values, if I equal to 1, which is a first row, if I is a first row, or if I equal to rows, which is of how many number of rows we are having, which leads to the last row. I am mentioning if the row is first row or the row is of last row. What I will be doing is that I will be print. I wanted to print first this particular spaces before pattern is starting. For that reason, I will mention space and I will multiply this space with outer spaces. Later, what I will be doing is that I will take this star because we are having star, right? So for that reason, I am taking this star. But if I simply mention a single star, we won't get all the result because in the last row, we were having so many stars here. So how we are getting this many number of stars is that here we are having a specific pattern before actually having this particular spaces in between of these stars. And the pattern is that 2 into the row that we are keep tracking minus 1. Here, the first row is having 1 and 2 into 1 which is of 2 and subtracting minus 1 which is of 1. So for that reason, we are having single star here. But in the last row here, this is the fifth row. For that reason, 2 into 5 which is 10 minus 1 which is of 9. So because of that reason, we have 9 stars here. 3 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that, we are having 9 rows here. So for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will multiply this particular star with 2 into I minus 1. By mentioning this, we can actually multiply this particular star with this many number of times. After completing printing of this particular values, what I will be doing is that I will update this outer spaces value by minus equal to 1, because in the outer spaces we are reducing spaces on each iteration. For that reason, I am mentioning outer spaces minus equal to 1. So later, if this condition is fails, if I am getting the iterations not 1 or not the last row, at that time what I will be doing is that I will mention a else block. In this else block, what I will be doing is that first we need to print these outer spaces, right? So to print outer spaces, I am taking a single space and I am multiplying this space with the outer spaces. And after that, I am concatenating these outer spaces with a single star, which is of here. In each row, we are only having single stars, right? So for that reason, I am mentioning a single star here. After that, I am concatenating this single star with the spaces. And how many number of spaces that we are having? We are having keep track of this inner spaces. We are having a variable inner space, and this inner space is getting increased by a specific pattern in this. So to keep track of that, we will be mentioning these spaces here. So we will see what is that pattern that these inner spaces are following. So for the time being, I am mentioning the spaces here. So after completion of the spaces, we are concatenating this with another s- star which is at the end here. So for that, I will mention one more star here. So by mentioning one more star, we can actually generate this particular pattern here. So after this printing, we need to do two updations. Here it is not just spaces. Here we are having inner spaces, right? So after that, what I will be doing is that these outer spaces need to be reduced on each iteration. For that reason, I will mention minus equal to 1. So what about these inner spaces? So let us understand through this pattern. Here in the second row we have one space. In the third row we have one, two, three spaces. In the fourth row we have one, two, three, four, five spaces. So by that you can understand that on each row is increasing, the number of spaces is increased by 2. So for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will mention inner spaces plus equal to 2, because these inner spaces are increased 2 number of times on each iteration. For that reason only I am mentioning inner spaces plus equal to 2. So now if I execute this, I can able to get the result of same pattern that what we have expected above, right? So I hope you can able to understand this logic. If not, let me explain one more time for you. So here we are taking the rows to keep track how many number of rows that we are having. So for that, to print this particular pattern. So after that, we have identified we have two number of spaces here. One is outer spaces, which is having before starting this particular pattern, and another space which is of inside of this particular stars. So to keep track, we are mentioning two specific variables, which is outer spaces and another one is inner spaces. So by using this for loop, I am generating a range of values from 1 to how many number of rows that we are having. After that, I am mentioning a condition. If this iteration is starting with of first row or the last row, at that time what I will be doing is that I will first print the outer spaces, and next I will print these stars with whatever the pattern that this particular pattern is following. So for that reason I have mentioned 2 I minus 1. Later, if this condition is not true, what I will be doing is that I will come to this else block and print this particular outer spaces, and also print this star which is having in this particular position on each row. After that, we have this inner spaces. To keep track of this inner spaces, we have variable inner spaces, and after that I am printing this particular star at the end. So after completion printing of this particular print statement, I will be incrementing this outer spaces. I will be decrementing this outer spaces by 1, and I will be incrementing this inner spaces by 2. So by mentioning this particular logic, we can actually generate this particular pattern. So now what we will be doing is that we will take the input to dynamically from the user. So I want integer value. For that reason, I have mentioned int here. So to get input, I am mentioning int input, and I will give the prompt as enter any number. So if I execute this, I'm getting this as enter any number. If I give 5 here, so it was giving the same pattern of what we expected. Let me give one more number which may be of 9. So if I execute this, I can able to get the exact pattern that what we have expected. Let me give one more number. Let's say this time I will be giving 16. So like this, we can actually generate this pattern by any number given by the user input. So I hope you can able to understand this logic to generate this kind of a pattern. So in the next video, we will see how we can generate this particular pattern using this kind of similar logic. If you can able to print this particular pattern, write your solution in the comment section. That is more appreciated. Anyway, we will discuss this solution for this pattern in the next video. To stay updated, subscribe to this channel and hit the notifications and turn on to all so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So if you understood this particular concept, hit the like button and thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.